A Mortal's Journey to Immortality Episode 342. In the previous episode, Han Li found his plans upended when Nun Hualien unexpectedly invited him to join the Royal Serenity Monastery. Despite his doubts, both she and senior teacher Lu insisted it was the path most suited for him, leaving Han Li with little choice but to accept. But behind the polite smiles, darker intentions simmered within the academy. After Han Li left, senior teacher Lu revealed his plan to use a forbidden Sensajoin devouring technique, one that required teacher Yan's life, all for the sake of vengeance against a fearsome devil cultivator. Their uneasy pact hinted at treachery, sacrifice, and a coming clash with the Black Yang sect. At the end of the previous episode, Han Li departed with Nun Hualien, unaware of the deadly schemes unfolding behind him as they soared toward illusory Cloud Peak. What will happen next? Stay tuned. And the story continues. Han Li and Nun Hualien were standing in a secret room filled with an assortment of materials. There was a red-faced early Foundation establishment cultivator appraising Han Li with a tight frown. The air inside the chamber was warm with the faint scent of minerals, rare herbs, and smoldering earth fire. Han Li stood calmly, hands behind his back, his expression steady. Nun Hualien introduced the red-faced cultivator as Elder Wei, one of the two tool refinement masters of the Three Royals Monastery. She explained that Han Li would act as his assistant, not to become a true tool refinement master, but to help refine a very important treasure. His role would last roughly 3 years, and if he performed well, she promised medicine pills and personal cultivation guidance. Elder Wei frowned at Han Li's young age and low cultivation, questioning whether he understood tool refinement at all. Nun Hualien only smiled, insisting that keeping the refinement secret within the monastery was safer than allowing outside sects to take part. She argued that although Han Li appeared inexperienced, his spiritual power was remarkably pure, and his control should be strong enough to handle the material refinement under guidance. Reluctantly, Elder Wei accepted this reasoning, though his displeasure was obvious. But when he inspected Han Li with greater focus, surprise flashed across his face. He realized Han Li's foundation held unusual potential, his spiritual power clear and refined in a way uncommon for someone of his stage. With that discovery, his attitude shifted slightly. Nun Hualien left, satisfied that matters would progress more quickly now that Elder Wei had assistance. Once she was gone, Elder Wei's voice hardened. He made it clear that regardless of Han Li's interest, he would receive 1 month of instruction in the basics of tool refinement. After that, Elder Wei would assign tasks every month, and Han Li would need to complete them or be sent away in favor of someone more suitable. Han Li accepted without hesitation, replying with calm sincerity that he would put forth his greatest effort. That earnest response seemed to satisfy Elder Wei, who softened enough to explain the privileges that came with serving in the tool refinement hall. The disciples could freely use earth-fire reservoirs and certain magic tools, and they received extra spirit stones each month. With that, he led Han Li out of the chamber. Elder Wei introduced him to 3 other disciples, all young cultivators in the stage of spiritual energy condensation, and arranged a residence nearby. The tool refinement hall itself sat on the middle section of the mountain slope. Separate from the main monastery, it was small, with only a hall for earth fire, several refinement buildings, and caves for living quarters, including Elder Wei and 2 assistants at the 8th and 9th layer of spiritual energy condensation. There were only 7 people in total. Life in the hall was modest. Each day, male and female disciples of Royal Serenity Monastery arrived requesting tools or renting items for missions. Since the monastery was largely female, many visitors were young women of striking appearance, some clearly from wealthy backgrounds or powerful clans. The 3 young male disciples in the hall were constantly exhausted by their work. Yet their gazes often drifted toward these graceful cultivators, knowing any chance to build connections depended entirely on their skill at refining tools. Han Li observed their behavior with quiet disapproval. He was not interested in such matters and preferred silence, since the other 3 disciples were responsible for the daily maintenance of the hall and dealing with customers. Han Li was able to focus his time on learning how to refine materials. every day, for 2 full hours. Elder Wei personally taught him. He instructed him in the foundations of tool refinement, showed rare methods of purifying spiritual metals, and even demonstrated techniques passed down for generations. Although Han Li entered believing that a foundation establishment cultivator had little to teach him, he quickly discovered how wrong that assumption was. Elder Wei might not have high cultivation, but his mastery of the Tao of tool refinement was astonishing. His knowledge came from ancient secrets, lost techniques, and the accumulated wisdom of countless masters throughout Great Jin, compared to what Han Li had learned in the southern lands and scattered seas. The difference was overwhelming. Within 10 days, Han Li realized why Great Jin was praised as the holy land of cultivation. Even a minor monastery possessed profound knowledge that could surpass the legacies of entire sects elsewhere. The tool refinement knowledge Han Li originally acquired from cultivator xianxia had long been limited by his current level. Even his later studies from jade slips in the drifting cloud sect revealed little of true value. Now, encountering Elder Wei's methods, he saw a rare chance to deepen his understanding. He studied every detail, questioning Elder Wei with sharp insight, sometimes even pushing the old cultivator to reveal more information than planned. Because of this, Elder Wei's attitude gradually changed. Where he once spoke coldly, he now showed a friendly expression. The other 3 disciples watched with shock, having never seen Elder Wei favor someone so much. Jealousy grew among them, and they began treating Han Li with distant coldness. But Han Li preferred solitude, so their avoidance played directly into his desire for quiet cultivation. 1 month passed, and Elder Wei assigned the first tasks. Since he believed Han Li's cultivation was genuinely at the stage of spiritual energy condensation, he did not give overly difficult materials. Han Li completed them with ease, leaving him plenty of time to cultivate the Brightjade Arts. His daily routine became steady. Each month, Elder Wei assigned materials for purification. Outside those responsibilities, Han Li's time was devoted entirely to cultivation. 4 months passed peacefully. Elder Wei became extremely busy, sealing himself within the Earth Fire Hall's chamber for long stretches of time. Occasionally, Nun Hualian visited and discussed matters with him in secret. They always set alarm restrictions around the room. Although curiosity tugged at Han Li's mind, he ignored the temptation and continued his cultivation without attempting to eavesdrop. After all, he did not wish to reveal his true strength. One day, deep in meditation inside his quiet cave, his body twisted into a strange posture. His hands formed a precise incantation gesture as they pressed against the meditation mat. A faint golden light covered his skin, rippling like liquid metal. Under close examination, countless thin veins and spiritual channels appeared beneath his skin, pulsing visibly with flowing energy. Swollen bumps the size of small eggs moved beneath the surface of his flesh. As though alive, each tremor sent visible pain through him, twitching his muscles and tightening his jaw. Sweat rolled down his face, soaking through his robes, as he forced his body to adapt to the cultivation arts. This was the Brightjade Arts reaching a deeper stage, reshaping flesh, blood, and channels to hold greater spiritual power. Every moment felt as if he were enduring the weight of mountains on his bones while fire flowed through his veins. Time passed in silence. Eventually, the golden glow dimmed, fading into his skin until no trace remained. The swollen veins shrank, the moving bumps sank back into flesh, and his expression relaxed as the pain faded. He let out a long breath and released the incantation gestures before returning to a regular meditative position. At that moment, the oddities on his body quickly disappeared and it returned to normal in the blink of an eye. As Han Li felt the intense scorching heat slowly fading away from his body, he opened his eyes and his face revealed a pensive expression. The lingering ache still crawled beneath his skin, but the overwhelming wave of agony had receded like a burning tide drawn back by the moon. For a long moment, he remained still, feeling every pulse of blood, every trembling muscle fiber, and the quiet echo of pain that continued to haunt his nerves. The Brightjade Arts was beyond overbearing. Even after condensing a nascent soul and cleansing every inch of his body with spiritual power, he found this physical cultivation method shockingly brutal. He had expected hardship, But the intensity of the suffering genuinely exceeded his imagination. Each cycle of training felt as though his veins boiled, his bones swelled, and his spiritual sense itself was being torn open by invisible claws. Unable to suppress his concern, he called out to Monarch's soul divergence, the ancient soul hidden within the puppet body. His voice carried quiet worry as he asked whether the technique itself was flawed or dangerous. He had only reached the second layer of the Brightjade Arts, yet already the pain was so intense that he wondered how any ordinary core formation cultivator could endure it. He recalled stories claiming that many Buddhist cultivators waited until they reached late nascent soul stage before even attempting the training. By then, their lifespans would already be nearing their limits. Was the effort worthwhile if the agony consumed the years they had left? Monarch's soul divergence replied in a slow and relaxed tone, as if the matter were completely mundane. He explained that the Brightjade Arts had originally been a cultivation method of the demon clans, later adapted by Buddhists through painstaking research. Buddhist cultivation systems, especially those tied to their ancient doctrines, emphasized endurance and mental perseverance. They excelled at resisting pain, and combined with the incredible natural strength of demons and elder devils. The original form of the technique produced far less suffering when applied to human cultivators. However, the result was drastically different. Human bodies, even strengthened by spiritual power, were never meant to endure such violent transformations. Han Li listened in silence before letting out a bitter smile. The explanation made sense. He simply had no time to learn auxiliary Buddhist techniques that reduced suffering. He would have to face the torment directly and force his way through every barrier until his body adapted. Thankfully, the pain remained barely tolerable so far, and more importantly, the results spoke for themselves. To confirm his progress, Han Li raised his sleeve and allowed a faint blue light to flash across his eyes. He carefully examined his arm, tracing the flow of spiritual force through his muscles and bones. After the time required to finish a cup of tea, he tested his skin with a gentle tap before lowering the sleeve again. His expression eased. In truth, while he had suffered greatly, the Brightjade Arts produced transformation far beyond any body-forging method he had ever experienced. Even in this short period of cultivation, his physical strength had undergone an astonishing change. His body felt heavier in power, yet lighter in movement, as though every motion carried both the solidity of stone and the sharpness of lightning. Satisfied with the results for the moment, Han Li closed his eyes and quietly steadied his breathing. When his mind cleared, he rose from his meditation mat and exited his secluded room, stepping back into the quiet halls of the tool refinement compound. His thoughts drifted to another recent discovery. A few days earlier, while purifying his assigned materials for Elder Wei, he had combined the various techniques the old master taught him and suddenly comprehended a new approach to refinement. The breakthrough allowed him to complete the final step needed to craft a crystallized demon core into a flying needle. In the days that followed, he used the earth-fire reservoir at noon each day to temper the needle, strengthening its structure and enhancing its power. Now, as he walked toward the earth-fire hall to continue the final rounds of tempering, he suddenly heard the sound of footsteps approaching from the direction of the main gate. The noise did not feel like ordinary movement. It carried the orderly rhythm of a group marching in formation. Han Li stopped and looked toward the entrance. In the courtyard, he saw a group of 9 young cultivators being led by the 3 disciples of the Tool Refinement Hall. At the front of the group stood a young woman dressed in elegant emerald palace robes. She was striking in appearance, and her posture carried the effortless grace of someone raised with status and education. Yet her eyes, full of curiosity, gave her a liveliness that softened the formality of her presence. The cultivators behind her were all of similar age, but their spiritual cultivation was surprisingly high for their youthful faces. Most were at the 8th or 9th layer of foundation establishment stage. The woman in emerald held the highest cultivation among them, standing at the 10th layer. Their belts displayed bulging storage pouches, and 3 of them even carried spirit beast bags, signs that they possessed wealth, resources, and family influence. The 3 disciples leading them wore polite and nervous smiles, trying their best to be accommodating. Their eagerness revealed how precious these young guests must be. Han Li quietly turned away, not wanting to attract attention. He had no desire to interact with privileged young nobles. Without breaking his stride, he headed toward the Earth Fire Hall. But just as he stepped away, one of the 3 disciples called out loudly, "Junior Marshal Brother Han, come here and help us. County Lord Luxiu wants a magic tool refined. There are a few materials that must be specially handled. This task comes personally from the 4th Monastery Lord. We cannot delay." Han Li stopped in mild surprise. The titles caught his ear. He understood the hierarchy of the Royal Serenity Monastery by now. The monastery housed 4 core formation lords, each commanding great authority. Above them all stood the sole nascent soul cultivator, residing in the clear heaven courtyard. Among the 4 lords, the 4th Monastery Lord possessed the most admired abilities. Even senior teacher Lu of Pure Revelations Academy had expressed awe when mentioning her name. Yet Han Li had never seen any of the monastery lords in person. He approached the group with a calm expression. County Lord Luxiu's gaze turned toward him. The other young cultivators also studied him. But when they noticed his seemingly low cultivation at the 4th layer of foundation establishment stage, their expressions quickly shifted to impatience and disdain. A blue-robed young man spoke before anyone else could, questioning whether Han Li was qualified to refine bloodvein silver. The tone was sharp. Bloodvein silver was rare, and the implication was clear. If Han Li ruined it, would he dare accept the responsibility? County Lord Luxiu smiled gently at the remark, but her eyes flickered with faint doubt. The others held a similar attitude. They did not expect someone of low cultivation to possess refined skill. Han Li, however, remained unbothered. He freely admitted that such a rare material was difficult to refine and suggested that they might be better off seeking another cultivator. His directness stunned the group into silence. They had expected defensiveness, excuses, or arrogance, anything but calm honesty. A handsome young man regained his voice and asked why the famed master of the hall could not assist them. One of the disciples explained that Elder Wei was in deep seclusion, refining an important treasure, and could not be disturbed. County Lord Luxiu then spoke softly, asking whether the disciples could persuade Elder Wei to come out even briefly, claiming she had heard about him in her estate and wished to meet him personally. Her soft tone melted the composure of the 3 disciples. They agreed to try, despite Han Li recognizing the danger of disturbing Elder Wei without permission. Moments later, the disciple returned, face pale, forcing a strained smile as he gently explained that Elder Wei could not be disturbed. They had no choice but to rely on Han Li. This led to further questions from the noble young cultivators. Another young woman asked why the trained disciples themselves could not refine the material. Embarrassed, the tallest disciple explained that while they could handle common materials, only Han Li had received personal instruction from Elder Wei on special refinement techniques like those required for bloodvein silver. County Lord Luxiu gave Han Li a thoughtful smile and accepted the situation gracefully. She said that since she could not stay long, this might be her only opportunity to refine the material. If it failed, she would accept the loss and search for bloodvein silver again another time. Han Li nodded, agreeing to attempt the refinement so long as she understood the risk. But he pointed out that he could not focus if too many people watched. The County Lord immediately agreed, saying only she would remain inside with him, while her companions either waited outside or toured the compound with the disciples. Although the young nobles looked slightly displeased by this arrangement, none of them voiced objection under her command. Han Li then wasted no further words and led the way towards the Earth Fire Hall. The girl then signaled her group to remain in place with her eyes. The Earth Fire Hall was the most important structure of the Tool Refinement Hall. Although it only spanned a little over 300 meters wide, it was 3 stories tall. Its compact size hid its extraordinary purpose. Each floor served a precise function designed for the art of spiritual tool refinement. The upper floor held countless rare materials, stored in sealed rooms to preserve their spiritual essence. The middle floor was where earth fire could be directly guided, allowing the refinement of precious ores and the forging of lower-grade spiritual tools. Deep beneath all of this, the lowest level sank nearly 100 meters into the earth, forming a vast underground pit. Here, pure earth fire essence surged up from the depths. glowing like molten light. Only the most powerful and complex magic tools could be refined there. Under intense pressure and unimaginable heat, Han Li often worked on the second floor, using a quiet room tucked away from the main walkway. It was a place filled with scattered tools, metal fragments, and unfinished projects. Today, he brought the young woman known as County Lord Luxiu with him. She carried a rare spiritual material called blood-veined silver, and he intended to refine it for her personally. When they stepped inside, Han Li immediately noticed how messy the room looked. He took a moment to gather scattered items, clearing the floor, arranging the 8 gourd-shaped magic tools, and wiping away a layer of dust from the large cauldron that stood at the center. County Lord Luxiu looked around with bright curiosity. For someone raised within privilege, she appeared surprisingly innocent about the process of tool refinement. She walked to the side of the cauldron, touching the metal surface lightly, as if trying to feel the spiritual heat hidden inside. She asked in a lively tone, "This is where Senior Martial Brother Han refines materials?" Her gaze lingered on the cauldron and the 8 gourd-shaped tools placed evenly around it. It was clear this was the first time she had ever seen a live refinement site. Han Li frowned slightly and asked, "What, has the County Lord never seen the refinement of magic tools before?" He found it strange that someone with noble status and cultivation talent could be so unfamiliar with basic knowledge from the tool refinement world. She smiled, fingers brushing the handle of the cauldron. "Ever since I was young, I have followed Aunt Yu in cultivation. I have never had time to learn about tool refinement. I usually remain inside the estate to focus on my spiritual arts." Her mention of a private estate made Han Li curious. He casually asked, "You cultivated in your estate? Could it be that the Yu estate is located above a spirit vein?" His question surprised her. She widened her eyes and then let out a playful smile. "Could it be that Senior Martial Brother does not know who I am? You truly do not know the royal clan from which I gained my position as County Lord?" Han Li paused. A quiet shock passed through him. He replied calmly, "I am ignorant and unsure of your identity." She laughed as if relieved. "You are ignorant? That is wonderful. Then I do not need to pretend to care about my position as County Lord. To tell the truth, I am only distantly related to the Great Jin royal family. I have never even seen the Emperor of the Great Jin. I have always followed my master in cultivation and have never stepped foot inside the royal mansion." As she spoke, her tone shifted. The elegant posture of a noblewoman softened into the casual openness of a young woman freed from expectations. It was clear she disliked the endless flattery surrounding her title. Han Li felt a sense of amusement. "You are royalty?" he asked, lowering his voice slightly. She sat down casually in the lone chair beside the wall, tilting her head with mischief in her eyes. "What, are you surprised? My title is real, but it is only something the Emperor bestowed. My aunt warned me not to embarrass the imperial family when I arrived here. Otherwise, I would never dress like this, nor allow that group of people to follow me around with their boring speeches. Everything they say is empty talk. It is truly exhausting. Right now, I can only relax around Senior Martial Brother Han. You will not be tactless and say something foolish, right?" Han Li coughed lightly, choosing not to pry further into her personal situation. Instead, he said, "In that case, I will continue to speak to you as I am now. But it seems your esteemed ancestor must be someone quite extraordinary." Her pride returned in an instant. "Have you heard of the 4 great vagrant cultivators in the Great Jin? My grandfather is one of them." The words struck Han Li like thunder. Everyone who walked the cultivation path within Great Jin knew that title. Even though he kept a low profile, he had heard of their reputation. They were nascent soul cultivators of exceptional ability, said to be capable of overwhelming several ordinary nascent soul experts alone. Despite his usually calm behavior, Han Li showed genuine surprise. "The 4 great vagrant cultivators?" he repeated. "I have heard of them. That identity may be even greater than your title as County Lord. Your future prospects are truly boundless." Luxiu raised her chin proudly, accepting the praise without hesitation. Han Li could already sense that she was straightforward by nature, unbothered by modesty when it came to her lineage. But there was work to be done. He lifted his hand and struck the cauldron with several spell seals. A ripple of light spread across the metal surface, followed by a deep humming sound. The cauldron glowed faintly as spiritual runes awakened, and the air around it began to warm as earth fire energy gathered. Luxiu watched with bright, unblinking eyes. Every movement of his hands and every spark of light seemed to fascinate her. She had never stood so close to the mysterious craft of spiritual refinement. When the activation was complete, Han Li turned to her and spoke simply. "Take out the material." She blinked with a teasing smile. "I will tell you now. Senior Marshal brother, there is no need to speak politely in front of others. If you truly fail and ruin this precious material, you will have to compensate me." Even though she said it jokingly, Han Li almost rolled his eyes. The blood-veined silver she held was extremely rare. Even a Foundation establishment cultivator would struggle to obtain a piece of it. If he were truly only a disciple on the path of spiritual energy condensation, it would be absurd to imagine he could ever repay such a loss. Still, he remained calm. Luxiu placed a stone in his hand, shining silver with countless thin crimson lines running through it like blood frozen into metal. He examined it for a moment, then tossed it into the cauldron. Around it, he placed several supporting materials that would stabilize the blood-veined silver during melting. He sat down cross-legged in front of the cauldron. With practiced motion, he pressed a talisman onto his body. A thin layer of blue light wrapped around him, forming a barrier against the rising heat. As he chanted an incantation, the 8 gourd-shaped tools on the floor awakened. Each one released a steady stream of intense scarlet flame, merging beneath the cauldron and feeding its spiritual fire. The temperature rose sharply. Waves of heat spread outward like invisible ripples. Luxiu instinctively stepped back, pressing a hand against her chest as warmth flushed through her face. Although she cultivated diligently, she was still unprepared for the raw, furnace-like force of earth fire refinement. While Han Li worked, far above the second floor, in a secluded building at the peak of the mountain, an entirely different conversation was taking place. An old Taoist nun sat across from a beautiful middle-aged woman. The atmosphere between them was tense, and the words they exchanged carried a heavy weight. With a grave expression, the Taoist nun said, "We do not have much more time. Our royal family has spent over 400 years preparing for this. 8 generations of monarchs have worked in secret to protect this plan. If it fails, we will not only lose our chance to acquire those 2 treasures, but the entire royal family will face disaster. Our Yi clan may have hidden its strength, but if we clash with the Buddhists and the other great factions, we will collapse at the first strike. And those Confucian cultivators may speak of loyalty to the throne, but if something draws their attention, they will be the first to act against us. Our Yi clan has always played with fire." The beautiful woman sighed, shoulders heavy with pressure that had been carried for generations. "Aunt, we all understand this, but this is a rare chance for our clan to finally free itself from those forces. Do not forget how our 7th great-uncle and the others died. When the world saw that the royal family had gained even a little strength, the great factions immediately joined together and sent several nascent soul cultivators to kill them. Afterwards, they used a shallow excuse to justify their crime." She continued with determination, refusing to let fear bend her resolve. "If we do not break away from this situation, our Yi clan will remain the highest noble clan only in name. In truth, we will remain nothing more than an expendable resource, something the great powers have agreed to sacrifice whenever necessary. If the legends are true, and we acquire those 2 treasures, every painful sacrifice over the centuries will be worth it. We will force those superpowers to recognize us through strength alone. They will not dare to attack us again." The Taoist nun's eyes turned cold. Her voice trembled with both doubt and fear. "The world has long spoken of the incredible power of divine spirit treasures. But I find it difficult to believe that 2 of them will allow us to stand against the greatest powers in cultivation. I fear that we are overreaching ourselves. If we draw attention to these treasures, the superpowers will erase our entire clan. They possess treasures of equal might. Even one of them would be enough to eliminate the Yi clan." The beautiful woman frowned deeply. Her reply came slow and solemn. "Deity transformation cultivators stand above all others. Even with the divine spirit treasures, Our 3 great ancestors would only be able to defend themselves at best. But you do not need to be so worried. Our Yi clan secretly investigated this matter over 100 years ago. After long analysis, we discovered that only a very small number of cultivators have reached the deity transformation stage in the last 2,000 years. She leaned forward. Most of those few ascended to the higher realms. There can only be 2 or 3 that remain in the mortal world at most. And those who remain pay an enormous price. Their movements are restricted. Their cultivation is suppressed to the late nascent soul stage. And most importantly, such beings are unlikely to care about the rise of a single faction. The Taoist nun fell silent. Her eyes narrowed, filled with suspicion rather than relief. How can you know this? Do not tell me this information came from simple conjecture. For hundreds of years, countless cultivators attempted to discover the secrets of those who stayed behind after reaching deity transformation. All of them failed. How could you understand this truth in only 100 years? Are you lying to me? Or hiding something? The woman saw her aunt's anger rising and quickly spoke in a soothing tone. We have no intention of fooling you. Although this information is not something our Yi clan researched, it is something we acquired from an elder we recently recruited. His information matches the clues we collected perfectly, so it is fair to say that our Yi clan has managed to properly investigate the matter. Elder, when has the Yi clan acquired another elder? Is he a vagrant cultivator or someone from a small sect? Will there be a problem? The Taoist nun quickly asked several questions in her alarm. Her tone was sharp because she understood the stakes. Power inside the Great Jin Empire was balanced on the tip of a blade. And a single unknown elder could shift all of their carefully crafted plans. The beautiful woman before her, the nun's junior relative, bowed respectfully and answered with a calm voice that attempted to reassure her. Do not worry, aunt. This person is not from the Great Jin. He is a vagrant cultivator from the distant soaring sky plains. His abilities are impressive, and we have investigated everything we could about him. There is nothing wrong. He offended the soaring sky temple and fled to escape their pursuit. Our clan has not yet revealed this matter to them. The Taoist nun relaxed slightly, though her eyes still carried cold concern. She stepped deeper into the shadows of their private chamber and spoke with quiet authority. Their discussion was not simply about a single wandering cultivator. It was about the future of their clan, the dominance of the great powers that ruled the land, and the desperate struggle to seize 2 divine spirit treasures that could change everything. The nun replied, "That is good, even if I do not approve of the plan. The elders have already set it in motion. Those 2 divine spirit treasures must be obtained. Whatever happens afterward, we will deal with it as it comes. But you must be careful from now on. The superpowers have eyes and spies everywhere. Any major movement from us could expose the entire operation. We cannot allow a single leak." The beautiful woman smiled bitterly. Knowing her aunt was right, she had already sensed the pressure tightening around them. The powerful clans and sects hidden across the empire had grown suspicious. "We fear we have already drawn attention," she admitted. "During the past few days, the superpowers have sent many new cultivators to the capital city." The nun narrowed her eyes. "Were there any nascent soul cultivators among them?" "No," the woman answered, shaking her head, "but the ones they sent are all at the core formation stage. And the same number of nascent soul elders remain in the capital." The nun's expression turned measured. This meant the superpowers were watching. But they had not fully awakened to the truth. It was a tight balance. One mistake away from disaster. After thoughtful silence, she spoke again, revealing the deeper schemes they had woven to distract their enemies. "That is acceptable. It seems they only suspect something. Fortunately, the 3 Royals Monastery has announced it is refining an important treasure. That news has drawn most of their attention away from your side." Hearing this, the beautiful woman nodded. It was a clever diversion, but it came with its own opportunities and risks. "Your orders were correct," she said with respect. "Even though the treasure is only bait, if the 3 Royals Monastery actually succeeds, it will greatly increase our strength. If there is a chance, we should do everything we can to help them refine it." The nun's eyes glimmered. The treasure being forged was the mountain-crushing seal. Even an imitation of the legendary artifact could tear open mountains. In the hands of their clan, It would be equal to gaining another late-stage nascent soul cultivator. It could easily change the balance of power among the superpowers. She replied, I know. The mountain-crushing seal is valuable beyond imagination. If we refine even a partial replica, it will become an outstanding weapon. We cannot afford to fail. Now tell me, your second uncle spoke of recruiting powerful vagrant cultivators. How is that progressing? The woman reported everything she knew. 2 of the 4 famed vagrant cultivators had already entered the service of the royal family. The remaining 2 were impossible to find. But others from the frontier still showed interest in resisting the dominance of the great sects. Even a ghost monarch from Luminous West Mountain and the Deputy Lord Shang of Myriad Demon Valley had expressed willingness to support their rebellion. Small sects had also begun sending quiet goodwill. It was a delicate network, woven from desperation and ambition. The 2 women continued speaking, trading secret information and planning each step of a silent power struggle that could shake the empire. Their voices faded, and time slipped away as their schemes grew deeper. Ellipsis. Far from the whispered plots of noble clans, Han Li stood in the Earth Fire Hall with County Lord Luxiu. He had just accomplished a feat that surprised even himself. In his hands rested an egg-sized piece of shimmering silver metal. Glowing with intertwined silver and crimson light. It was blood-veined silver, fully purified. Luxiu stared at it, eyes wide with delight. She could barely believe her luck. She had visited many tool refinement rooms across the market cities, seeking someone skilled enough to handle this rare material. None of them dared attempt it. Yet this quiet cultivator, who claimed to be nothing more than a temporary helper in the refinement hall, had succeeded with ease. I did not expect you could truly refine the blood-veined silver, and at such high purity, she said with a bright smile. Elder Wei must be highly accomplished to have a disciple like you. I searched everywhere, but no tool refinement master could guarantee success. Han Li smiled lightly and shook his head. His answer revealed how deeply he concealed his true abilities. Marshal Senior Wei's refinement skills are far above those of ordinary tool masters. But I am not his disciple. I am only helping the refinement hall temporarily. When the time comes, I plan to focus on cultivation. My refinement skills are only something I learned casually. Luxiu's happiness dimmed slightly. To her, this was a waste of talent. A cultivator capable of refining blood-veined silver could become a legendary tool master. If he stepped away, all that potential would be lost. What a pity, she said softly. You have such talent. Han Li did not linger. He placed away the tools, ready to leave. I have refined the County Lord's blood-veined silver. I have other matters to attend to, so I must take my leave. But just as he turned, Luxiu stopped him with a playful smile. She refused to let him escape so easily. Wait, am I so ugly that you cannot stay a little longer? And who said that was the only material? I still have something else. I did not show it before because I was unsure of your skill, but now I am certain. She lifted a jade box and presented it to him. Han Li felt a dull headache forming. Refining blood-veined silver had already drained much of his energy. He held the box without opening it and spoke truthfully. More materials? County Lord Luxiu overestimates me. My cultivation is shallow. Refining the blood-veined silver already pushed my limits. I cannot refine anything else right now. Luxiu laughed softly. She was not requesting purification, only assistance. Your magic power is low. That is true, but this item does not need to be purified. I only need you to help preserve its spiritual nature and slow its decay. I must warn you, you cannot speak of it after I show you. It is extremely rare, perhaps unique in the entire world. Han Li's curiosity rose. He opened the box slowly. A brilliant red light burst forth like flames. Instinctively, Han Li activated the bright sight spiritual eyes and blue light flashed across his gaze. Both he and Luxiu gasped at the same time. Inside lay a half-foot-long plume feather, translucent like a crystal made from living fire. It glowed with shifting red runes, each one burning like living flame. Han Li whispered, "This looks like a vast young bird feather, but different." Luxiu shook her head proudly. She was clearly satisfied with the reaction she had earned from him. "It is a black phoenix plume. When my grandfather brought me across the sea to visit a powerful senior, His spirit bird was sleeping. I sneaked close and plucked one feather. That stupid bird never noticed. Then she leaned closer, eyes sparkling with curiosity. What about your eyes? They glowed blue. Is that a magic technique? Han Li calmly dismissed the spell. Hiding its nature, he was already speaking with Monarch Soul Divergence through his spiritual sense. Seeking answers. Monarch Soul Divergence explained the truth. The Black Phoenix was a variation of the Flame Phoenix. The plume could increase the power of Han Li's 7-flame fan. But its spiritual nature had already decayed. It was no longer suitable. Han Li felt deep disappointment. Rare opportunities like this rarely appeared. Luxiu, however, remained focused on his eyes. What spirit water did you use? Do you still have any? Can you give me some? Han Li smiled regretfully and lied to preserve his secret. It must be used immediately after refinement. I have none left. Luxiu pouted, suspicious of his answer. Are you telling the truth? Han Li simply said he was. Then added that he had something else that might interest her. Immediately, her crafty smile returned. What will you trade for it? Do not tell me you want my Black Phoenix plume. He closed the box and smiled helplessly. County Lord Luxiu must be joking. How could someone like me dare covet such a treasure? I only wish for you to confirm something. She waved her hand boldly, pleased by the situation. Confirm something? That is easy. No need to trade. If you help me deal with the Black Phoenix plume, I will answer your questions the best I can. After some thought, Han Li nodded and said, all right, let us do as you say. 2 hours later, Luxiu emerged from the hall and was met by her entourage, who had been impatiently waiting outside the hall. The young nobles immediately rushed forward around her like a colorful flock of birds, their luxurious robes brushing the dusty stone tiles outside the earth fire hall. County Lord, how did it go? One asked breathlessly. Did that person ruin your blood-veined silver? Another demanded, eyes wide with worry. Their questions came rapidly, overlapping with youthful anxiety. Luxiu raised a hand gently, brushed aside a loose strand of hair, and revealed a sweet smile that instantly reassured them. The arrogance and bold tone she showed earlier had vanished completely, replaced by the elegant composure befitting a noble daughter. Nothing went wrong, she said lightly. Thank you all for your concern. Senior Marshal Brother Han has already assisted me in refining the material. And with great success. Behind her, the 3 Tool Refinement disciples watched obediently from a distance, not daring to get too close to these noble young cultivators whose families held high positions among Great Jin's cultivation world. A moment later, Han Li stepped out from the Earth Fire Hall. On his face, there was no hint of pride or excitement, only a faint twitch at the corner of his mouth. As if he found the situation troublesome. Luxiu's colorful entourage was too eye-catching, and he did not wish to draw their attention. The fewer eyes on him, the safer his path. In his mind, the voice of Monarch Soul Divergence chuckled softly. Hee, youngster Han, you are truly cunning, coaxing the location of the Black Phoenix from the young girl. Do you plan on visiting the Island Lord and asking for another Black Phoenix plume? Han Li's expression did not change as he walked away from the gathering. His reply was calm, indifferent, but heavy with careful calculation. Of course, since there is a known method to reinforce the Triflame fan, I must do everything I can. I cannot waste so many rare materials and effort on a treasure with limited power. Common ancient treasures do not affect a late nascent soul cultivator. If I wish to strengthen my foundation, every piece matters. He continued walking toward his residence. Come, they will stay at the Royal Serenity Monastery for the next few days. I will enter seclusion. I do not want my cultivation disturbed by them. He left without another word. During the next 2 days, Luxiu repeatedly sent people to quietly search for Han Li, hoping he would refine more of her rare materials. She had tested him once and now believed fully in his skill. But Han Li had already placed a simple restriction on his door and hung a sign declaring that he had entered secluded cultivation. Even if she had the privilege of a noble title, she could not break a cultivator's retreat. After several attempts and a frustrated pout, she turned away. Soon after, the County Lord left the monastery along with her entourage. Once she was gone, the Tool Refinement Hall returned to its normal state. The bustling noise and pressure of noble expectations disappeared, replaced again by the quiet discipline of cultivation and craft. As the months slowly passed, Han Li refined materials occasionally, but most of his time went into cultivating the Brightjade Arts. Step by step, he focused his mind on tempering his body and vital energy, sensing subtle changes building within him. His dedication was steady, silent, and precise, because the materials he refined for the monastery were handled so perfectly. Elder Wei began to look at Han Li with new appreciation. The elder had believed this quiet young cultivator to be nothing more than a talented assistant. But every purification, every refinement, was flawless. Over time, Elder Wei took the initiative to personally explain the finer mysteries of material refinement to Han Li: how to recognize the hidden veins in spiritual ore, how to preserve the essence of elemental wood, how to purify metal without damaging its innate spirit. Later, Elder Wei even handed Han Li several rare materials to refine, items normally prepared only by high-rank specialists. Whenever Han Li noticed these rare materials, he refined them immediately, without delay, returning them perfectly purified. This astonished Elder Wei. Eventually, the elder saw that Han Li held true talent in tool refinement and began assigning him more tasks. Han Li's knowledge deepened, and his experience grew rapidly. But in his heart, he always remembered his original plan: remain low-key, gather experience, and focus on cultivation. No matter how impressed others became, he would not allow himself to be tied down. One day, Elder Wei began working on a secret refinement project. The elder left a portion of the materials for Han Li to handle, which surprised him. Several of the materials were Earth attribute spiritual essences, extremely rare and powerful. Most treasures that relied solely on Earth attribute materials possessed astonishing force and defensive power. Though Han Li returned his portion of the work calmly, he could not ignore the shock in his heart. Still, none of this truly changed his path. He continued cultivating the Brightjade Arts with silent determination. As he approached the second layer of the technique, he faintly felt profound changes awakening deep within his flesh, strength gathering, bones growing dense, meridians thickening with power. Around this time, something unexpected happened. News spread from the Pure Revelations Academy. Teacher Yan had passed away from a sudden illness. When Han Li heard this, he frowned deeply. Illness? When I last saw him, his spirit seemed firm, his breathing was calm, there was no sign of sickness. Han Li thought. His instincts tightened. With his spiritual awareness, he also sensed many unfamiliar cultivators secretly appearing around the Royal Serenity Monastery. Watching it from a distance, something was brewing. A storm was forming. His mind grew cautious. I should not stay here too long, he thought. If I remain, I might be dragged into something troublesome. With his vast experience traveling between dangerous sects, factions, and battles, Han Li never ignored such intuition. For the next period, he trained with even greater focus, preparing his body and energy for departure. 1 full year passed. Then a seemingly small incident shook the monastery. An external affairs disciple in the lowest rank of cultivation suddenly disappeared. Normally, the disappearance of one disciple among many thousands would not matter. But this particular disciple was skilled in material processing and worked in the tool refinement hall. Losing him created a gap in important tasks. The incident was serious enough that the monastery's nascent soul stage elder personally intervened to investigate. Inside the elegant inner hall of the Royal Serenity Monastery, the old Taoist nun sat in a grand armchair. 2 yellow-robed Taoist nuns stood before her, one middle-aged, one a young woman in her late 20s. A heavy silence filled the room. What is going on? The old Taoist nun asked coldly. With the defensive formations of our Royal Serenity Monastery, how could a single disciple disappear without anyone noticing? Speak. The middle-aged nun bowed respectfully. Marshal Senior, we examined every restriction within the sect. All formations are intact. There is no sign of an external force infiltrating our monastery. It seems either a spell formation master was involved, or the disciple left on his own. The old nun frowned. A spell formation master? The grand formation of this monastery is one of the strongest in Great Jin. Even the few masters in the realm cannot break it. If he escaped from within, that is possible. What was this disciple's name? What are his origins? The younger nun immediately answered. He was named Han Li, a vagrant cultivator recruited 2 years ago from Pure Revelations Academy by Martial niece Hualian. The old Taoist nun's eyes widened slightly. Han Li? The same name as the Elder Yi clan recruited recently? Yes, the younger nun said. I was startled myself when I heard of it, but it must be coincidence. How could a mere vital energy cultivator be related to a nascent soul elder? The old Taoist nun did not relax. Coincidence? Perhaps, but the timing is too perfect. Someone involved in refining that item has disappeared, and the name matches a newly recruited elder of our clan. No matter what, this must be fully investigated. She continued with calm authority. Send people to the capital. Closely question Elder Han. See if there is any connection between him and the missing disciple. Also, summon girl Hualian. I will question her personally. It seems we have been played by Pure Revelations Academy. In addition, we cannot delay the refinement progress. The item must be finished within 3 years, or it will affect the great event. The 2 yellow-robed nuns bowed and hurriedly left. As the door closed, the old Taoist nun exhaled slowly, leaning back in her chair before closing her eyes, deep in troubled thought. 3 months later, in the largest market city of Yi province, a young man purchased an unknown piece of ore from a common stall. The price he paid was 30,000 spirit stones, a shocking amount for something no one recognized. 5 months later, in the Fan Prefecture's trade fair, a masked cultivator spent 50,000 spirit stones to purchase 3 pieces of firegrant wood, rare material used only for special ancient artifacts. Half a year later, in the remote lands of Feng Province, a mid-grade sect discovered that their iron rhino horn, a treasure nurtured by the earth, had vanished overnight. They suspected a powerful thief had stolen it. 8 months later, a fearsome mid-nascent soul cultivator with an ugly appearance suddenly arrived at the estate of the top clan in the Ku region. He demanded to trade 1,000-year spiritual herb and a grade 7 demon core for their rainbow light wood. 2 nascent soul elders went out to reject him. With a casual wave of energy, the ugly man froze both elders instantly in thick ice. The clan master panicked. With no other choice, he agreed to the trade. The ugly man laughed wildly, threw the treasures onto the ground, took the rainbow light wood, and disappeared into the sky. The clan hurried to rescue their elders. Their lives were spared, but both suffered heavy loss of vitality. Over the short span of 1 year, a youth, a masked cultivator, and a large ugly man began appearing across the southern portion of the Great Jin Empire. Everywhere they went, they collected rare materials, strange unknown ore, elemental wood, earth treasures, and ancient components. To sharp observers, the pattern was clear. The youth bought obscure treasures few could identify. The masked cultivator attended auctions with endless wealth. The ugly man directly extorted noble clans, exchanging rare goods with overwhelming force. More mysteriously, among larger sects, rare materials began to disappear overnight without any trace. The identity of the youth and the masked cultivator remained hidden. Only a few sharp individuals sensed a shadow moving across the land. But the large ugly man's actions shook the entire southern cultivation world. His methods were brazen, arrogant, and unstoppable. Across the region, more and more sects realized their secret collections had been targeted. Furious, they dispatched disciples to hunt down this mysterious thief. And as for the ugly mid-nascent soul cultivator, the sects supporting the victimized clans began sending forces to track him down. To uncover the whereabouts of this reckless invader whose actions had shattered their pride and shaken their foundations. In this episode, we saw Han Li quietly move through 5 connected parts of his journey, centered on his growing skill in tool refinement and his careful avoidance of danger. After helping County Lord Luxiu refine her rare material, he immediately withdrew into seclusion, inside the Royal Serenity Monastery. His talent impressed Elder Wei, earning him rare materials to refine while he continued cultivating the Brightjade Arts. But strange events disturbed the monastery's peace. Teacher Yan's sudden death, hidden cultivators spying nearby, and the disappearance of a young disciple named Han Li caused suspicion and investigation. Realizing a powerful treasure was being refined and that danger was approaching, Han Li escaped before being dragged into the conflict. After leaving, he traveled across the southern regions of the Great Jin Empire under different identities, collecting rare materials through trade, wealth, and even force. His actions caused a shock in the cultivation world, and now many sects are hunting for the mysterious figure responsible. What happens next? Stay tuned for the next episode of Immortal's Journey to Immortality. If you enjoyed this episode or found it interesting, do not forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel to receive notifications about the newest episodes in Han Li's journey. Thank you for watching, goodbye, and see you in the next videos.